Order. Order! Order in the court. I will have order in this court. Mr. New Roman, please proceed with your opening statement.
Your Honor, my client is a man of incredible integrity. A man who has... A man who has shaped the landscape of gaming in ways previously thought unimaginable. A man that single-handedly furthered the technology of feet scanning more than any man ever dared dream. A man who needs no introduction, and that man is Hideo Kojima.
We love you, Kojima! Scan my feet, Mr. Kojima!
Fuck my wife, Kojima-san!
Order, I will have order in this court. Mr. Callisto, your opening statement, please. And I will remind the members in the gallery not to be barefoot around the accused. Mr. Callisto.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I put it to you that the accused, Mr. Kojima, is a purveyor of many a fine games, some of which are totally rad and pretty spiffing. But I put it to you that this man is a sexist. Look, I fucking love David Hayter. I want to smooch him on the mouth while he wears a skin-tight bodysuit and he's touching me on my bum, and listen, I am a fairly straight man. But if Solid Snake was real, he could have his way with me. I mean, really have his way with me. I just let him turn me fucking inside out. I really like Metal Gear Solid, but playing any single entry in the entire series with 2026 eyes is a challenge to say the least. I would consider myself a feminist. And you know, man, everybody's got those games where it's like, I really enjoy this. I just don't want anyone to ever see me really enjoying this because of the social stigma that would surely arise from someone witnessing me indulging in this particular aspect of this particular hobby. I do not want anyone ever to walk in on me when I'm playing a Metal Gear game for so many reasons. One of which would have to be, you know, all the sexism, the way he writes women, the way he treats those women, the way he names those women. You might say he's a bit of a problematic fave, or you might say he's a product of his time and can't really be blamed for his actions. Or you might say he's a misogynistic hack fraud and that he absolutely didn't have to do all that. And what is all that? Let's take a look at the timeline. Now, this is a fairly cookie-cutter, rooty-tooty, shoot-man's-bang-bang game with all of the intellectual nuance of a Trump speech.
They're eating the dogs!
And such succinctly named characters as Shoot Gunner and Machine Gun Kid, originally released on something called the MSX2 and later reworked for the SNES in 1987. So I'm not going to massively hold this one against him, but what I will say is this: it kind of lays all of the groundwork for my whole entire argument, in that this is a game about strong men that shoot each other, and that what little female presence there is in the game is purely used as set dressing and fuck all else.
Objection!
Dude, can we not please? One of the few women to actually make an appearance on screen is Ellen, whose only role is to be rescued in order to motivate her scientist father to tell Solid Snake that the secret to destroying the ultimate weapon known as Metal Gear is to place explosives on it. Thanks. Thank you, old man. Thank you for making me trek through this insufferably dated game to learn this pertinent information. I don't have any fulfillment in my life. The game came out in 1987. It has dialogue and plot points about as strong as any average idiot gibbering child could write, smashing their action men together amidst a pile of broken and off-brand Lego while their parents are shouting at each other again. In the grand scheme of things, it was the 80s. Everyone was coked up, hyper-capitalist misogynists that completely misunderstood the plot of every single movie. Rambo, Robocop, Blue Velvet, Wall Street. Really not that bad when you consider the context of the time in which it exists. On the other hand, the literal first time a woman is ever mentioned in a Hideo Kojima game It's to say that she's not there because she's gone shopping. Moving on. In the same way that 1987's Metal Gear is a pastiche or rip-off of Rambo, 1988's Snatcher is Hideo Kojima's attempt to ride the line as close as he possibly can and not get sued by whichever shithouse media conglomerate owned the rights to Blade Runner. I mean, it's Blade Runner. I don't understand how he got away with it. It's fucking Blade Runner. If Blade Runner had a protagonist that had an internal dialogue that resembled the inner workings of Russell Brand's ever-crumbling mind. You are an amnesiac tasked with recovering your lost memory, and you are the single most horny human being to ever walk the earth.
Objection!
No, imagine if Harrison Ford was an erect penis. This not-so-private dick ambles from one sexual harassment to another, scene for fucking scene. Every single woman is a target to him. You can leer at them, comment on their bodies, and awkwardly come onto them in a manner that is mere millimeters away from what would constitute so many HR meetings if it was done in the workplace, and often it is done in the workplace. You harass your colleagues, you turn up at businesses, tell all the women there that they've got a great set of honkers, and leave a trail of potential lawsuits in your wake. And the thing is, you've got this little robot called Metal Gear that will, more often than not, chide or correct you whenever you say or do something questionable. But like, you can't harass a woman, get your little jollies off and go, naughty, naughty. What is you doing the naughty? You could just not put that in the game and it wouldn't lose anything. The ability to Me Too any woman within your immediate vicinity doesn't add anything to the experience. No, nobody's cranking it to 4 pixels worth of booty hole. Wait, nope. I've spent time on the internet. That's not true. So there's like 4 women in this entire game, which for a game released in 1990 actually isn't that bad. You know, there are clothed women in a game released the year before Duke Nukem, and none of them are overly sexualized. I mean, there are bits where Snake is a giant fucking dweeb. I mean, don't get me wrong, this is still a game about strong men with guns and mullets that shoot other strong men with various hairstyles. But of the 2 women given any significant screen time, one of them at least has some form of agency. Gustava Hefner is extremely disposable and exists only to be killed and used as emotional motivation for Snake. But she does things. She's an Olympian, gold medalist. She takes an active role in the mission with Snake. I mean, she walks behind him and then dies, but I think considering the cultural context in which it's surrounded, Metal Gear 2 kind of gets a pass from me. Which I definitely can't say for this game. Holy fucking shit, Kojima. In Policenauts, if you do well enough in the shooting range, you get to use your mouse and just straight up flick a titty. Flop it around like that one drunk DJ guy. And not just that one titty, almost every woman you meet, you can right click, select touch, and just straight up molest strangers. It is more embarrassing than a privileged white woman with a microphone at award ceremony.
Rakai? Question.
Yo.
What's the coolest thing you've ever stolen?
More uncomfortable than Aiden Ross at a library.
Oh! What the fuck?
And ultimately, just kind of awkward, which is kind of how I would describe any time Hideo Kojima writes women, animates women, directs women, and presumably how he interacts with women in real life. The man is awkward around women, which brings me on to what is there to say about this game? This is, I think, to me, the first game that ever did it up real good. The first game to ever make me say, damn, Hideo Kojima, what that thing did. Everybody agrees that Metal Gear Solid is one of the greatest greats, and we all want to fuck Solid Snake, and I mean, you know, people are entitled to their sexual proclivities, you know? I mean, let there be 1,000 blossoms bloom as far as I'm concerned, you know, but I ain't spending any time on it, because in the meantime, every 3 months, Hideo Kojima locks a woman into a binding and lucrative contract with scanning her fucking feet in extreme detail. And Metal Gear Solid is one of the greatest greats, but let's be real here. It's a bit sketchy about women in that very Kojima kind of way. The camera leers at Meryl. We're perving on her before we even know she's a woman. When we think that she's Johnny, we zoom in on her sashaying hips and Kojima goes, hey, look at this ass. You think it's a man's ass, but actually, it's a sexy lady's ass. Marvel at how I both subverted your expectations and deftly objectified a woman for comic relief, as we're treated to a slow-mo prism blur of about 12 polygons worth of cake. Meryl even does a bit of internalized misogyny herself with the world's most basic pick-me routine.
You know, I don't use makeup the way other women do. I hardly ever look at myself in the mirror. I've always despised that kind of woman.
Ultimately, her purpose within the plot of the game is to be used as emotional motivation for Snake to reach his goals, rather than serve any purpose of her own. Once where she's used as human bait when Sniper Wolf just straight up Charlie Kirks her ass, and once more where she's the prize to be won for the two big, strong boys non-homoerotically, non-incestually touching each other up with no shirts on. Now, I don't know about you, but I am a fairly straight man, and I would let Liquid and Solid Snake just absolutely Eiffel Tower me. They could put their liquids and solids wherever. Meryl exists purely as motivation for the men in the story of Metal Gear Solid. Just like Ellen exists as motivation for the men in the story of Metal Gear way back in 1987. Between 1987 and 1998, Kojima advances his visual storytelling, his thematic observations, and his ability to hold an audience in the palm of his hand. But his attitude to women remains the same as it was in the 80s. Women are objects to be attained, they are to be fought over and won. They have some form of agency, they can shoot gun and eat hot chip and lie, but when it comes down to it, they're only allowed to exist to further the goals of the men in charge, which actually is kind of how real life functions under capitalism. Hideo Kojima, hidden woke queen. And you know what? I will say this, Sniper Wolf, Meryl, the camera spends an uncomfortable amount of time objectifying them. But on the other hand, there are so many shots of Snake in his skin-tight muscle suit, camera practically penetrating his balloon knot whilst he's looking like a straight-up snack. And I am a fairly straight man. So here's the thing about Metal Gear Solid 2. It's not that bad. Yes, some of the women in it exist solely in a dependency state for the entirety of the game, but there aren't as many overt creep shots in this one. You don't really get the Disney Wolf yiffing and having a heart attack while his eyes jump out of their sockets to ogle any woman that happens to walk past the camera. And the protagonist, Raiden, is pretty female-coded, at the very least androgynous. I think Kojima clearly wanted Raiden to contrast Solid Snake in every way possible, but might not have had the idea or the guts to actually make Raiden a woman. Raiden is lithe and slim compared to Snake. His features are soft next to Snake. He walks with clasped hands, bowing and submissive as if to suggest he submits to the world. In codec conversations, he looks the spitting image of Jeffree Star, for fuck's sake, and people hated him for it. Metal Gear Solid 2 came out in 2001, the crest of the new metal era where men were men and talking to girls was gay, and Hideo Kojima decided to launch the sequel to his wildly successful buff men punching each other with their shirts off simulator, with the lead role being given to a man exuding the hardcore twink energy, the likes of which your average dude bro in 2001 simply could not comprehend. People were pissed. For me, Raiden is explicitly coded female, and the fan reaction to it speaks volumes for the sort of audience that Hideo Kojima cultivates by choosing to handle the women in his games in the way that he does. Raiden challenged expected gender roles in very subtle ways, and he was crucified for it. Fans were expecting to play as Solid Snake, the ultimate man's man, the quiet, strong, immovable stoic, and instead they got Tilda fucking Swinton in a catsuit. Metal Gear Solid 3. I think Metal Gear Solid 3 is Kojima's attempt at trying to be a bit more mature about the women in his stories. I mean, I think he fails spectacularly, but I do think it might at least be said he tried in this one. The boss, by and large, is given a lot of agency and is barely made to be an object of sexual desire for Snake, outside of the obvious Oedipal thing. But you couldn't help but sneak a little Madonna whore complex in there, couldn't you, bud? You cheeky little kipper, you Kojima. I see what you did there. The boss is a pure, unshakable, a flawless and almost virginal figure, clad in white, and Eva is... there are basically 2 women that have any sort of prominence outside of codec conversations or flashbacks. And of those 2 women, one is a saint and the other is a prostitute traitor with nothing in between. And I think given the fact that these 2 women have such forward roles in the plot, there's evidence enough for me that Metal Gear Solid 3 really was Kojima attempting to give women their flowers in comparison to his other games. But equally, given the fact that the 2 women in the game are only allowed to be basically Princess Diana if she fought the Nazis or Bonnie Blue if she fought the Allies, we kind of see just how little Hideo Kojima really understands that women can be rich and complex characters capable of nuance and independent thought. I hate this game. For me, this is where the series kind of falls off. It's too long, too masturbatory. It's basically Hideo Kojima sucking himself off for 18 solid hours, and it's fucking dull. Yes, it's funny and somewhat intriguing to see a man take himself in his own mouth for 10 minutes, but by hour 15, you're just left wondering why you're still watching. And don't get me wrong, if I ever see a grown man wanking himself off for nearly 20 hours, I'm seeing it through to the end. But the whole time, you're wondering why you're there, right? I couldn't bring myself to play this again for the sake of this script. I just couldn't face the idea of a 70-minute cutscene that says so much and yet so little. Your Honor, strike this one from the record.
Motion dismissed.
I could just basically copy and paste exactly what I said about the last game for this one. There isn't really that much misogyny in the game, apart from... Fucking Christ, this game and the way it treats this poor woman is absolutely insane. You've got the scene where she dances in the rain and Kojima finally goes mask off about his foot fetish, which is only redeemed by the mod that replaces Quiet's model with Ocelots. She gets electro-tortured on the titties, and the level of boob zoom and jiggle physics is just off the charts here. Kojima must have been beating his meat to a fucking pulp in the studio with this one. We're talking Stavros Halkias levels of horny on main. We've got jiggle physics when she's covered in sores and open wounds. The poor woman is sexualized when she's seemingly about to be raped. Kojima reveals his true creepo fuckboy power level with this game. He drops the fucking sex bomb, flops it out and makes you look at it for 90 flipping hours. Fuck me. And the crying shame of it all is that Quiet's a fucking badass. If you removed all the nastiness surrounding her, I genuinely believe she'd be a top tier character. That scene where she's hidden inside Pequod and she snipes a fighter pilot, cinema, give me more of that, please. Less of this fucking words and deeds shit, I beg you. Metal Gear Solid 6 was a universally loved game, but when Throbbing Snake flopped out his wanger, it was totally out of line. Look, obviously Metal Gear 6 didn't happen, and I'm clearly reaching for bits because I just don't want to play Death Stranding or Death Stranding 2. But for the sake of this video that will get me about 26 views and 2 comments from a couple of the most sweaty, illiterate incels. So I officially rest my case and allow the defense to proceed with theirs. The prosecution rests.
Yeah, I really dug the scene with Quiet in the rain. It's just the contrast of the soft bare feet against the unyielding metal floor of a mother base. It was
Your Honor.
Yeah, the defense may proceed.
Now, every single example I've just spent actual moments of my increasingly finite life listing off, to me, establishes a very clear pattern in the way that Hideo Kojima chooses to portray women in his games. But there will be a certain kind of person, your capital G gamer, your sweaty little grease lord, that will have a pre-prepared argument for every single one, and here they are.
It's not intended to be sexist. He's just a little scamp.
Intent doesn't matter when actions have consequences.
It's cultural differences. You're being too sensitive.
Not every person in Japan is a sexist, isn't that right, Bubba? Isn't that right?
The women in Metal Gear are deep characters with complex and varied backstories.
You can be a deep and complex character and still wear clothes.
It's all a send-up of movies from the 80s. It was a different time.
Not the 80s anymore.
He gets better about it as he goes along. He learns.
Well, that's just not true.
Oh, come on, it's equal objectification. The men are just as sexualized.
I mean, that's not true either. The men are often shirtless, but they're never naked and dancing in the rain.
It's a satire. come on.
You can satirize something without indulging in it.
It's sexy, just let me goon, bro, come on.
Gamers can have a little gooning as a treat, but it's just all the other shit that comes with it. Fuck, I think I broke my sofa. So, what's the verdict? Is Hideo Kojima a sexist or not? I think in some ways, whether the man himself is actually a sexist is kind of irrelevant. Who he is as a person doesn't really matter. What does matter is the tangible, real-life effects that the legacy that his body of work has on the world. But before we go into all of that, I just want to say this. Like, I know he's Hideo Kojima, he's an auteur, and he's the greatest human being of all time, but like, is he? My guy does not know when to stop writing. My guy has an terminal inability to say, you know what? That's good. I don't need to say any more about that. Like, say less, Kojima. Say a lot less. No game needs an hour-long cutscene. No game has ever needed a whole episode of Murder, She Wrote with commercial breaks and network bumpers between button presses. Death Stranding 2 has 3 or 4 hours of cutscenes in its ending. 3 or 4 hours! I don't care how many times you say Die Hard Man is an ironic name. Since the man left Konami, this shit has gone off the rails. Nobody's there to tell him, hey bud, you know this Princess Beach line? We've got 6 hours of cutscenes already. Can we maybe lose it? Oh, you've got another hour you want to write, and you want to scan Elle Fanning's feet down to the pores of her skin for the next game. No, we're not doing that. Hideo Kojima is not a good writer. I don't think there's a single human being on this planet outside of Reddit that would disagree with that statement. But he makes incredible games. The man is an artist, a visionary, an icon. And he's an icon for a reason. His games are rightly held in the highest of regards. When Hideo Kojima launches a game, it is an event because you know it's gonna be a guaranteed banger. And the fact that he makes such great games comes with a responsibility because of the very love that people hold for him. I played Metal Gear Solid before I was a teenager, and the atmosphere was indescribable. The story gripped me from start to finish. The entire aesthetic experience was unlike anything I'd ever known, and the sexism was cool and funny because I was like 11 when I played that game. But I've grown up since then. I've been out into the world, I've met and spoken with actual real life women, and I've come to know that women are both people and have agency, and as a result of that, I now avoid consuming media that portrays women in harmful ways. Hideo Kojima clearly never did that part of growing up, and it shows. He's a sexagenarian who still thinks like a 14-year-old when it comes to women. Does that make him a sexist? Ultimately, yeah.
Guilty!